Wonders of the Moonroot Vale. Chapter 1. The Sound Beneath the Ferns. There is a hush that falls only in the hour just before dawn. Not silence, no. A hush. A feathered stillness, as if the world is exhaling after a long starlit sigh. In the deep green cradle of Moonroot Vale, that hush was a living thing. It slipped between moss-cloaked trees, rustled the wide ferns with soft velvet fingers, and made the brook babble just a little more gently over the glistening stones. It was in that delicate stillness that the girl named Ira first heard the whispering. She was lying belly down in a hollow of dew-damp clover, breath shallow, heart tapping out a nervous rhythm in her chest. Her fingers curled around the moonwood flute tucked at her side, the cool carved wood smooth as river glass. Somewhere beyond the trees, the sound came again. Shira. It wasn't wind. It wasn't bird call. It was something older, something listening. Ira lifted her head, letting her ears catch the hush. The golden light of the two moons, Aurelia and Teth, filtered through the trees and streams, lighting up the drifting mists in silver swirls. Everything shimmered, everything tingled, and then a snap, a twig, soft but clear as a chime. Ira rolled onto her side, holding her breath. From the shadows stepped a tall figure, cloaked in woven silver leaves, their hair white as cloud milk and eyes gleaming like black opals. "You're early," they said, their voice like a brush of silk across the skin. "The veil doesn't wake for another hour." Ira sat up slowly. I heard the whisper. The figure tilted their head. "You heard it." She nodded. Their voice dropped to a hush. "Then the root is stirring." Ira swallowed hard. The legends had always said the moonroot, the ancient spirit sapling slumbering beneath the veil, would whisper only when the veil between the waking world and the spirit realm thinned. And when it whispered, change would follow. The figure took a step forward. "You must come with me. Now bring your flute." "But no time," they murmured, bending low until their breath brushed her ear. They're listening too. And somewhere behind them, deeper in the trees, a click, like the soft closing of an unseen door. Click, and then a second. Click, click. Ira's skin prickled. Something had arrived. Something ancient. Something not entirely kind. The figure held out a hand. Their fingers glowed faintly with moonlight. "I am Thrin of the Hollow Ring. And if you walk with me now, child, you'll learn how deep the forest truly goes." Ira hesitated, then slipped her hand into theirs. The hush deepened, and the ferns shivered. Chapter 2. The Lichen Gate. The forest changed as soon as Ira took Thren's hand. The moss underfoot felt softer, like silk spun from rain clouds. The ferns curved inward as they walked, parting gently with each step, their leaves brushing against her arms with a whispery sigh. Each contact left a faint tingle, as though the forest was memorizing her shape. "Don't speak aloud from now on," Thren whispered, their voice lower than the rustling leaves. The trees remember voices, especially unfamiliar ones. Ira nodded, clutching her moonwood flute to her chest. As they walked, the air grew cooler, not cold, but crisp, like the moment before snowfall. A faint chiming began to echo through the trunks, not music exactly, more like crystalline breath. They moved in silence, winding through roots and ivy-covered stones, until they reached a slope Ira hadn't noticed before. It was steep and draped in velvety moss, glowing faintly in hues of emerald and blue. At the base of the slope, nestled between two enormous stone oaks, was a circular archway twisting with thick strands of lichen that glowed a muted silver. The mossy strands pulsed, thum, thum, like a heartbeat. The lichen gate, Thrin murmured, reaching toward it. It leads to the undergrowth, the root's edge. Ira frowned, but the root sleeps beneath the center of the vale. That's a full day's journey from here. Thrin looked at her with a small, knowing smile. In the waking world, yes, but when the whisper stirs, time folds, the veil bends. As Thrin brushed the lichen, it shivered and began to unravel, the strands slithering apart like soft snakes in reverse. The archway opened with a sound like a sigh through dry reeds. Pshh! And cool mist coiled out from the opening. Ira stepped closer. Inside was darkness, but not the heavy, suffocating kind. It felt velvety, inviting, as if the shadows themselves were offering to wrap her in a quiet embrace. Her breath hitched as she stepped through. The moment she crossed the threshold, her ears popped gently, like surfacing from deep water, and her skin broke out in goosebumps. The scent of the undergrowth hit her all at once. Petrichor, jasmine, and something sweetly ancient, like honey poured over stone. Thrin, she whispered, but her voice came out as a flutter, barely sound at all. The undergrowth swallowed it, softened it, cradled it. I'm here, came the reply just behind her. But Thrin's voice no longer echoed. It was flat, dampened, as though wrapped in velvet. They walked forward together, the only light coming from pale blue fungi blooming along the roots. Each step squelched gently, squish, squish, as the floor gave way to moss-drenched earth. In the distance, a flicker of gold danced. Ira blinked. Was it fire? Numbra, it hovered. It spun. A floating mote of light, pulsing in rhythm with the whispers she still barely heard. Shura. Mrr. Suddenly, dozens of the motes appeared, lighting up the grove in ghostly firefly flickers. They circled the pair in slow, deliberate spirals, trailing tendrils of warmth across Ira's face, her arms, her fingertips. She sighed involuntarily. Do not exhale too quickly, Thrin warned softly. They drink breath. A silence fell. Ira turned to Thrin. Why bring me here? Thrin paused, then knelt beside a thick root twisting out of the earth. It pulsed faintly with silver veins. Because the root is no longer sleeping. They placed their palm on the wood, and it's calling you. Chapter 3. The root's memory. The root pulsed beneath Thrin's hand, slow, deliberate beats like the drumming of distant thunder buried under centuries of stone. Thum, thum, thum. Ira could feel it now, too. The rhythm was not just sound, but sensation. It pressed into her chest, echoing inside her bones, as though the vale's ancient heart had decided to sync with her own. She stepped closer, drawn by a force both alien and familiar, like a lullaby her mother might have hummed before Ira ever had words to understand it. Place your fingers here, Thrin instructed gently, tracing the gnarled bark where the veins glimmered like mercury, but slowly, with respect. Ira reached out, her hand trembling slightly, and let her fingertips rest on the wood. At first it was cool, smooth and dry, like driftwood bleached under moons. Then warmth, then a breath, and then a voice. Not words, not quite, but feeling spun into thought. You are not the first, but you are the first to listen. Ira gasped, pulling her hand back. The undergrowth remained still. What was that? She asked, voice hushed. Thrin tilted their head. The root remembers. It speaks in fragments, echoes left behind by those who touched it, and those it chose. Ira turned to the ancient root again. voice had felt so personal, so intimate, like someone pressing their lips just beside her ear, breathing words not meant for anyone else. She reached out again. The moment her palm touched the bark, light exploded behind her eyes. A vision bloomed. She stood in a clearing under twin moons, younger than she was now, wearing a cloak stitched with runes. Her hands cupped a glowing orb of sap, the heart drop, a gift whispered about in bedtime tales. Around her, trees wept golden leaves. In the distance, something massive stirred, coiled and slumbering, but watching through unseen eyes. A voice, rich as soil, echoed all around her. The veil breaks. The veil thins. Balance is unmade. She must remember. She must return. Then, fire, screams, a shadow taller than mountains, a spiral of falling stars, and a final flash of... Ira collapsed backward, gasping. The undergrowth returned. The root was quiet again. Thren knelt beside her, eyes searching. You saw something. She nodded, breathing hard. It was me, but not me. I was younger, holding something. The heart drop, Thren whispered. It hasn't been seen in 300 years. Ira shook her head. The root said I must return. That balance is broken. Thren looked away, voice suddenly grim. Then the whispers were true. The veil between realms is thinning. The deeping is waking. The deeping? She asked. Thren stood slowly. A rift beneath the roots, a prison carved by the first druids. It holds what should never breathe again. Ira's blood went cold. And if the root is remembering you, Thren added, then it's because the deeping remembers you too. From the edge of the grove, the air rippled. A low humming began, like bees trapped in a bell jar. Thren turned sharply. They found us. Ira stood, trembling. Who? But before Thren could answer, a shape slid into view, tall and thin, cloaked in bark black and draped in willow silk. No face. Only a hollow mask of carved wood, weeping silent smoke. It tilted its head, and the whisper came again. Shira. Ira. Chapter 4. The Hollow Mask. The masked figure stood motionless. It didn't breathe. It didn't sway. Even the smoke that seeped from its carved eyes and mouth drifted in strange spirals, as if time slowed in its presence. Ira's pulse thrummed wildly, her ears filled with the flutter of blood. But when she tried to step back, the moss beneath her feet gripped her boots gently, as though the forest didn't want her to run. Thren's hand slipped to Ira's shoulder, calm, steady, fingers cool as stream water. Do not speak to it, they murmured. Do not answer its whisper. Ira swallowed hard. The air around the hollow mask buzzed softly, like glass vibrating under pressure. The whisper came again, closer now, inside her head. Ira, Ira, I remember your name. Do you remember mine? Say it. Let me in again. She clutched her moonwood flute tightly. I can hear it, she said under her breath. It's a root echo, Thren replied. A shade of someone once lost to the deeping. If you give it your name, it roots in you. It blooms. And then... They didn't finish the thought. The hollow mask took a step forward. Its foot made no sound, no rustle, no crack. Only the faintest tick, like bark splitting under moonlight. Ira could see it better now. The body was woven from bark and moss and memory. It looked assembled, like a scarecrow made by something that didn't understand how humans were supposed to bend. And it was tall, too tall. Thren stepped in front of her. Go, deeper into the undergrowth. Follow the fungal light paths. Do not stray. I'll hold it here. Ira hesitated, but You are the one it's calling. That means you're the one it fears. Thren stepped toward the creature, unspooling a long silver thread from their sleeve, chanting in a language Ira didn't recognize, each word clicking like chimes caught in storm wind. As they spoke, the very air shimmered with static. The leaves shuddered, the light dimmed. Ira turned and ran. The undergrowth darkened the further she went, but the glowing fungal paths brightened. Clusters of mushrooms that pulsed faintly under her feet and along the bark. Every step felt like sinking deeper into a whispering dream. The voices changed, no longer the hollow mask, but others. We remember you, little sapling, little song. You left once before. She clutched her flute to her chest. Her fingers itched. Her breath came faster. The path opened into a chamber, circular, domed with tangled roots overhead. In the center stood a pool, still, perfect, glowing faintly like milk in moonlight. She stepped forward. The water didn't ripple until she knelt beside it. And then, the pool spoke, not in sound, but in reflected memory. She saw herself, tiny, no older than 6, cradled in a bed of moss, the moonwood flute in her hand, a figure, tall, faceless, kneeling over her. It placed a kiss on her forehead, a glowing seed in her palm, and whispered, "One day, the root will call, and when it does, you must answer with song." The pool rippled. Ira blinked. There was something inside her flute. She unscrewed the end, something she'd never even realized could open. Inside was a pearl. No, not a pearl. A seed, silver and pulsing faintly with light. Her breath caught. The root had been waiting for her to return. And the hollow mask wasn't the only thing that remembered her name. Behind her, the faintest creak, a twig, a breath. She turned slowly and saw 2 more hollow masks step into the chamber, taller than the first, black vines coiling around their limbs, smoke coiling around their wooden eyes. This time, they spoke in unison. "Give us the seed, Ira." Chapter 5. The Song and the Seed. The hollow masks stood at the edge of the chamber, unmoving, yet somehow buzzing with energy. The air around them warped with soft static, like heat above a summer road. Smoke curled from the carved mouths and twirled toward the seed in Ira's hand, tendrils reaching, tasting. "Give it. It belongs to the deeping, to us, to you." Ira stepped back. The seed thrummed in her palm, warm and alive, like a heartbeat trapped in crystal. She could feel it now, not just the pull of the root, but something else inside her, a resonance. She glanced at her moonwood flute. There was a song, one she didn't remember learning, but her fingers itched for it. A melody older than memory, older than fear. The masks crept closer. Their movements were slow but constant, like roots growing in time-lapse, silent, steady, inevitable. Ira brought the flute to her lips, closed her eyes, and breathed in the moss-rich air. The first note was soft as dew. It rippled outward, curling through the chamber in spirals, a high, hollow tone like glass singing in fog. The fungi pulsed in response, glowing brighter. The roots overhead shivered. Even the pool shimmered in waves of color, pearlescent, dreamlike. The second note followed, lower, deeper, like the sound of a stream in the throat of a cave. The masks froze. Their smoke faltered, twisting backwards into themselves. Ira's fingers moved without thinking. Her hands danced across the flute, coaxing forth a melody that shimmered in the air like falling snowflakes. Each note a memory, each breath a binding. The seed pulsed with light, brighter, brighter, and then cracked. Silvery tendrils unfurled from the broken shell, wrapping around the flute, weaving into its carved wood. The moonwood darkened slightly, infused with the seed's essence. Her flute had become something more, something alive. She kept playing. The melody rose, layering upon itself. 3 notes, then 5, then 7. An impossible harmony. The song of root and blood. The hollow masks screeched, recoiling. Their wooden faces warped, curling inwards as if collapsing under pressure. One shattered into a spray of black ash and smoke, vanishing with a final whisper, "You still remember." The other fled into the roots, melting into shadow. Silence returned. A breathless, golden silence. Ira lowered the flute, heart pounding. Her fingers trembled. The root's voice stirred in her mind again, this time clear. "You have remembered the first song. The deeping fears your voice. The veil has chosen." She stood, dizzy but steady. Behind her, a familiar sound, soft footsteps. Thren emerged from the shadows, silver threads singed, cloak torn at the hem. They stared at the flute, then the seedless shell in her hand. "You played it," they whispered. "You sang it back to life." "I didn't know how I knew," Ira said. Thren nodded solemnly. "The veil stores memory in more than roots. It stores it in bloodlines." Ira looked down at the flute, now wrapped in living silver. "What am I?" she asked. Thren placed a hand over her heart. "A child of the root, a descendant of the first singer, the one who once sealed the deeping with song. A beat. And if you've remembered the song," Thren said quietly, "then the seal is weakening." Ira felt it. Something beneath the world shifting, breathing. And far below, in the deepest dark, something else had heard her song. Chapter 6. The deeping stirs. The air had changed. It was in the way the moss no longer pulsed with light, in the way the fungal paths faded behind them like ink in water, in the way the very roots above the chamber twisted uneasily, pulling tighter as if bracing against an unseen wind. Ira and Thren stood still, listening. Then came the sound. A long, low groan, like a stone mountain exhaling after centuries of silence. "It's begun," Thren whispered, their voice barely more than breath. "The deeping has stirred." A cold tremble passed through the soil. The chamber's pool shivered again, but this time the reflections didn't show memories. They showed eyes, countless, glassy, blinking in the black water before melting into nothing. "Come," Thren said. "There's little time. We must reach the heart root." Ira followed, her footsteps light, her breath barely a whisper. The silver-bound flute trembled at her side. Not from fear. No. It vibrated, as if tuning itself to the thrum of the earth. The passage beyond the chamber narrowed. The ceiling dipped low. Roots brushed her shoulders and arms like fingers dipped in ink. The scent of loam thickened. The very air began to hum. Then came the voices again. But they were different now. Not seductive, not curious. These were hungry. "The song is loose again. The cage is cracking. Let us in." A gust of breathless wind surged through the tunnel, carrying with it the dry, cracking chuckle of something inhuman. Thren reached into their satchel, pulling free a small pouch of dust. With a flick of their fingers, they scattered it into the air. A shimmer bloomed, forming a glowing spiral in midair. "Step through," they said, quickly, before the veil breaks entirely. Ira obeyed. As she passed through the spiral, her skin tingled, her vision shivered, and her ears filled with the soft sound of chanting, a lullaby without words, woven from wind, water, and wood. She emerged into light. Not sun, not moon, but the radiant glow of the heartroot, a great tree the size of a cathedral, buried in the earth, its bark pale and luminous, its canopy stretching across the cavern like 1,000 frozen lightning bolts. Its roots were not still. They breathed, they pulsed, they watched, and embedded deep in its trunk, wrapped in thorned vines and warding glyphs, was a black spiral of twisted wood and glass. It pulsed with a red, slow glow. That, Thren said, nodding solemnly, is the seal. What's left of it? Ira approached slowly. She could hear dripping, but it was not water. It was sap, thick and dark and shimmering like starlight, leaking from cracks along the spiral. The seal was failing, and with it, the cage that held the Nameless One, the entity sealed in the deeping long ago. Ira stepped forward, the song still humming in her hands. "What do I do?" she asked. "You must finish what your bloodline began," Thren said, "but not just with music." They reached forward and placed something in her hand. It was a pendant, a tiny glass orb filled with threads of golden light. "Memories," Thren whispered, "of your mother, your grandmother, the first singer, their voices woven into this. Let it guide your melody." Ira nodded. She closed her eyes. She took a breath, and she began to play. At first, silence. Then a soft note, barely audible, spiraled into the air. The tree responded. Light shimmered across the bark. The glyphs glowed faintly. She continued. The melody rose, gentle, layered, mournful, and strong. The notes curled upward like vines, like smoke, like prayers. Suddenly, the seal screamed. A blast of dark energy surged outward, knocking Thren back. The ground cracked. Roots screamed in a language older than wind. But Ira stood firm. Her flute blazed with silver light. She played louder. She played with grief. She played with hope. She played with every memory the veil had ever held. And deep below, in the darkest hollow of the deeping, the Nameless One stirred. Its voice was oil and ash and ancient ruin. Ira. And Ira opened her eyes. She did not flinch. Chapter 7. The Nameless One. The cavern shuddered. A deep, sonorous boom rolled through the roots, louder than thunder, yet felt more in the spine than the ears. Ira stumbled, her flute slipping from her lips, breath caught in her throat. Ira! Little seed, little song. You were mine, once. The voice was everywhere, not from the seal, not from the air. It bloomed inside her head, whispering across her thoughts like mildew across stone. She grabbed at her chest. Her pendant pulsed fiercely, glowing with golden threads, humming a soft counternote. The voices of her ancestors, their memories woven into the light, resisting the darkness pushing in. Thren crawled toward her across the broken floor, blood at the corner of their mouth. "Don't stop," they gasped. "It knows you, but it fears you more." "But I don't remember," Ira cried, trembling. "I don't know who I was, who I'm supposed to be." Thren's gaze burned with urgency. "You don't need memory. You have music. You have the song in your bones. That is older than remembering." The heartroot screamed. A fracture ripped through the seal, long and jagged. Through it spilled not smoke, but dark tendrils, thick with voices, pulling at the air like drowning hands reaching up from beneath the earth. And then it stepped through. The Nameless One was not a creature. It was a presence, wrapped in a cloak of broken whispers and hollowed names. It wore no face, only a mask of polished rootwood, cracked down the center, dripping ichor like ink. Behind the mask, there was only void. Its limbs were long and wrong, shifting and twitching like the limbs of a tree in a storm, but too fluid, too intentional. It watched her with no eyes, and yet she felt her soul laid bare. I remember your song. I drank it once, sweet and full of sunlight. Now I will drink it again. Ira stood frozen, but then her fingers moved, the flute rose, and the song returned. But this time, she played not just melody, but memory. Each note shimmered with a piece of her. A soft morning on mossy hills. Her mother's laugh, like wind chimes. The first time she saw moonlight catch on spider webs. The ache of being alone. And then, more. Memories not her own, but drawn from the pendant. The first singer, barefoot and crowned in starlight, raising her flute against the dark. The moment the veil chose her. The pain of sealing away the Nameless One, knowing it would remember her children. Each note fought the darkness. Each breath pushed it back. The Nameless One shrieked, 1,000 voices screaming at once. Its limbs thrashed, striking roots, splintering the ground. It lurched toward her, too fast, black tendrils flailing, but Ira did not stop. She stepped forward. She played the final refrain, a single, drawn-out note, as pure as winter light on fresh snow. And the seal flared. Golden light erupted from the heartroot, climbing the tendrils, binding them in rings of flame-shaped glyphs. The cavern cracked and groaned. The Nameless One reeled backward. No, not again. Not by her. One final piercing note. And the Nameless One was pulled back into the fracture. The seal snapped shut behind it. The glyphs burned into place. The cavern went still. Only Ira's flute echoed. Once, then faded. She collapsed to her knees, breath ragged. Thren rushed to her side, helping her sit. You did it, they whispered. Ira blinked slowly, the light from her flute dimming. It's sealed. For now, Thren said. She looked up at the glowing heartroot. What was it? Truly. Thren stared at the tree, eyes heavy. Once, it was a guardian. Then it forgot its name. Power without identity becomes hunger, and hunger becomes the deeping. Silence stretched long. Then a single root dipped toward Ira, gently, reverently, and the root whispered to her once more. You remembered. You chose song over silence. We are whole, for now. Chapter 8. The Root's Gift. The light of the heartroot dimmed to a soft amber glow. No more shaking, no more tendrils. Only the gentle, rhythmic thump of the root's pulse, steady once again. Iris sat in the cradle of roots, her head resting against the ancient bark. The silver-threaded flute lay across her lap, warm, alive, pulsing faintly with light like it had a heartbeat of its own. Thren knelt beside her, carefully dabbing a cloth at a wound along their jaw. Their cloak was tattered, their hair streaked with ash, but their eyes shone with quiet awe. You did something no singer has done in 1,000 years, they said softly. Ira didn't answer right away. Her breath still came shallow, and her fingers tingled from the magic that had surged through her. She felt changed, not older, but deeper. I felt it, she whispered. The root, the forest, the voices of those before me. It was like I became the song. Thren nodded slowly, as if she'd spoken something sacred. The music remembered you because you remembered it. That is the heart of the gift. Ira glanced down at her flute. Is it still just an instrument? No. Thren smiled faintly. Now, it is a living thread, a bond between your voice and the veil, a thing made not only of wood and sound, but of story. It is one of the root's rarest blessings. The tree groaned gently, and a new vine slipped downward from the canopy. It unfurled, slow and careful, bearing a single glowing pod. It hovered before Ira, swaying with gentle grace. "What is it?" she asked. Thren's voice grew reverent. "A memory bloom. It holds a piece of the Vale's wisdom, stored not in words, but in feeling, and it is meant for you." Ira reached out. As her fingers brushed the bloom, it opened, unfolding like a moonflower under starlight. A wave of warmth flooded her chest. She closed her eyes and saw a child running barefoot along glowing paths, laughing, flute in hand. The root dancing with the wind, its limbs swaying like arms in a slow waltz. A circle of singers long gone, placing their palms on the earth, humming in unison. The first singer, her eyes closed, silver hair flowing, singing a note that echoed through centuries. And finally, she saw herself, older, standing beneath twin moons, surrounded by a circle of children, teaching them the song. Her voice was steady, her eyes were kind. She opened her eyes, gasping softly. "I saw. What's next?" she breathed. Thren nodded. "The root gives glimpses, never commands, but it shows you the paths it hopes you might walk." Ira placed a hand on the tree's bark. Its surface warmed beneath her touch, like skin warmed by sun. And the whisper came again, quieter now, fainter, but full of peace. "Grow well, little seed. The deeping sleeps again, because of you." The root's vines shifted, forming a spiraling staircase upward, leading back toward the world above. Soft fungi illuminated the path, glowing lavender and blue. "It's time," Thren said. "The surface awaits." Ira turned to the flute. Its new silver vines curled gently around its shaft, gleaming faintly. She raised it to her lips one last time in the chamber and played a single soft note. The Vale shivered in response, not in fear, but in joy. And above them, far above, the twin moons began to rise. Chapter 9. Above the Vale. The staircase of vines was soft underfoot, like walking on woven moss. Each step breathed, releasing faint curls of fragrance, jasmine, cedar, and something unmistakably ancient, like pages of a book written in the wind. Ira climbed in silence, the flute tucked beneath her arm, its silvered threads now cool and calm. Behind her, Thren followed, tired but smiling faintly, their cloak fluttering behind them like smoke caught on moonlight. As they ascended, the hush of the undergrove gave way to the soft kurr of insects and the distant glimmering chirps of moonlarks in the canopy. The roots began to thin. The light turned pale gold, then silver blue, and finally, they emerged. The surface of Moonroot Vale had changed. Where before the air was still and heavy, now it danced. The trees shimmered with dew. Mist coiled around trunks and drifted lazily through the clearing. The ferns swayed with no wind. Every leaf, every blade of grass, leaned gently toward Ira, as if greeting her or bowing. "I remember this place," she said aloud, "but it feels brighter now." "Because it remembers you," Thren replied. They stepped into a glade Ira hadn't noticed before. In its center stood a circle of standing stones, carved with ancient runes and softened by time and moss. At the center was a stone plinth. Upon it, a single line, written in an ancient language, but Ira understood it. "When the singer returns, let silence make way for song." Thren gestured toward it. "This is where the first singer once stood to protect the Vale. Now, the grove offers it to you." "I'm not her," Ira whispered. "I'm not even sure who I am yet." Thren smiled. Neither was she, until she sang. Ira hesitated, then stepped up onto the plinth. She turned slowly, taking in the vale, the soft rustle of birch leaves, the twin moons glowing like watchful eyes, the hush that now pulsed with a quiet excitement. Creatures peeked from the trees, loomish roos with glowing tails, winged dusk mice, and tiny beings of root and petal, all watching, waiting. Ira raised the flute, and she played. It wasn't the song of sealing. It wasn't a song of war. It was a greeting, a lullaby to the vale, a hello, a thank you, a homecoming. As she played, light flowed from the standing stones, climbing into the air like smoke and starlight. It swirled around her, filling the clearing with motes that tingled on her skin. The creatures chirped, whistled, sang back. The vale, once quiet, now sang with her. When she lowered the flute, the world was still again, but not silent. It was full of listening. Thren approached. You've healed more than the seal, Ira. You've reminded the vale that it has voice, and in doing so, you've become something more. She turned to them. What now? Thren reached into their satchel and pulled out a simple token, a ring of bark and vine, woven tightly together and glowing faintly with root light. This, they said, placing it in her palm, is the mark of a Val Warden. A what? The keeper of song, guardian of the grove, the one the root trusts to listen and lead. The ring tightened around her finger on its own, perfectly fit, warm. Iris stared at it in wonder. And for the first time, she didn't feel like a child stumbling through someone else's legend. She felt like herself, a seed now rooted. Chapter 10. The Whisper That Remains. Days passed, then weeks. Moonroot Vale remained quiet, but not in silence. It was a living hush, filled with soft footfalls on moss, the flutter of leaves, the rustle of wings in twilight, the kind of quiet that listens, learns, and sings when needed. Ira walked the glade daily now, barefoot, her silver-veined flute always at her side. She listened more than she played. The veil taught her that. Some lessons came in the form of wind through hollow trees, others in the soft crack of a root shifting beneath loam, still others in dreams where the root would whisper fragments of memory, not hers, but offered freely. She was not alone. Children had begun to return, those who heard the root's soft call in dreams and came from villages on the vale's edge, curious, uncertain, full of song and questions. Ira taught them gently, not with answers, but with silence, with flute, with patient notes that curled like smoke and settled into their chests. One dusk, as the twin moons rose together, Aurelia and Teth side by side in the amber sky, Ira stood once more at the plinth in the grove of stones. She played. It was not a great song, not a spell, not a shield, just a soft, wandering tune, like a lullaby for the trees. As she played, a breeze stirred through the clearing, and the ferns shivered. Leaves danced. Somewhere, a root creaked softly like an old door opening, and the root whispered, "Little seed, rooted now, whole, but not forgotten." She smiled, lowered her flute, and spoke into the wind. "I will remember." And so, the Nameless One slept, the seal held, and the veil sang, not loudly, not always in melody, but in every hush, in every pause, in every moment between words, where meaning lingers longest, a whisper beneath the ferns, a sigh in the trees, a flute's breath in the dark, and the story of the singer who returned, carried not by song alone, but by silence that listens. The end. sure to like and subscribe to our channel for more soothing stories. Thanks for listening.